Alright, schizo anime theory incoming. Today I'd like to make a wild prediction. I'm putting my chips on the table to make the bold proclamation that, despite all of the increasingly negative reception online, One Punch Man Season 3 will actually be the most successful, most highly viewed anime of the fall 2025 season.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
That sounds crazy, Framing. Everyone hates One Punch Man Season 3, right? Yeah, a lot of people are understandably disappointed with the series' steady decline of animation quality since its glorious Season 1 debut. And a lot of people do just straight up hate it. People hate it so much that they bullied the director, and I think a few of the animators too, right off of Twitter. As if lowering the morale of the people working on the show were somehow going to make the show better animated moving forward, and even though the studio executives and production committees are actually the ones to blame for working with a sort of ragtag band of animators instead of hiring at least a few industry veterans who specialize in action animation specifically, and are actually to blame for this atrocious production schedule that led us to only seeing real footage of the show 2 weeks out from its air date. That's the production companies and arguably the executives at the top of JC staff, not the director or the individual animators.
I'm like, what did he say fuck me for?
But we'll set all that aside for now. I think people forget just how viral a product can go straight off of pure hatred and hype disappointment sometimes. A lot of people are pissed about One Punch Man, and while the review scores and online sentiment floating around social media and YouTube might reflect that quite well, in terms of raw viewership, it's still the most popular show on my anime list this season. It's still the most popular show on AniList this season. Same thing on livechart.me. And while Japan's AniCore, with scores based on institutional reviews, primarily at least, may have also given it a relatively scathing review score, placing it in 11th place so far. If you rank by number of not institutional reviews, but regular people reviews, it's actually number 2 in popularity, just behind the new season of Spy Family.
No. Wait.
And speaking of JP numbers, guess what info Otaku Spirit just rounded up for us today?
It's here, folks. The time has arrived. The numbers are in. We're about 3/4 into the fall anime season, thus it's time to answer the most important question you're all asking yourself. Is your favorite anime even popular in Japan? Yes, this is a seasonal video series where I look at the available charts out of Japan, gather all the data available, and compare them to Western charts. Before I start, the usual disclaimers that most people are going to ignore. These rankings are based on different sites, more geared towards Japanese viewership. This can be through streaming sites, Japanese television ranking aggregators, and whatnot. All data is taken on the day of recording and can fluctuate based on episode airing, availability, exclusivities, early airings, etc. This data is not the end-all be-all. It's simply an interesting way to analyze interest in certain series and honestly gives a good perspective on the success of certain properties. Moving on, we have Netflix Japan. And then we go on to number 1. Yes, number 1 on Netflix Japan, charting pretty much every single week. One Punch Man Season 3.
Amazing.
Again, despite the fact that people don't like the production, it's still doing really, really well. It's kind of one of those moments where you do realize we are sending a certain signal towards the producers for this. Everybody's still watching it. Everybody's still seemingly enjoying it. And that's all they really care about, is getting the most viewerships.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
I'll be very curious when we get around to actually showing the numbers for Netflix, like they do release their full-on numbers. I'll be curious to see how this ranks compared to things like Sakamoto Days. But there you have it. Netflix Japan's number 1 show of the season is One Punch Man. Moving on from streaming sites, we do have 2 TV ranking aggregators, and that is Demora and Video Research and Kanto. For Demora, we have number 2, again, One Punch Man Season 3. Again, One Punch Man Season 3. People just love it. Everyone wants to hate on it, but it's still doing the best. And then number 1, we have Spy Family Season 3. So at least Spy Family's beating One Punch Man there. At least Spy Family's beating it.
I thought that was interesting.
Charlie has of course had multiple viral videos complaining about it with millions of viewers apiece, and I guarantee you that plenty of people saw those and said, well, I want to see the train wreck for myself. Chibi has had multiple big videos about it. I believe it's trended on Twitter a few times. Not that I would know because I don't really get on Twitter anymore.
No, I don't need no internet. No, sir. Not in my life.
My point being is that the reason you've been inundated with stories about how terrible it is and how much of a failure it is, it's because everyone and their mother is watching this show. Everyone is talking about it because everyone is watching it. And I'd wager that many of those deciding not to watch it have simply turned to the manga, which is all the same to Shueisha, who publishes the manga and sits on the production committee for the anime. Point is, the show is in turn receiving endless amounts of press after already receiving 6 years of expectations and endless copium-induced hype videos. I did not make that video. I made this video because I could see this coming crystal clear 7 months ago when I realized that we had 0 staff information and multiple solo staff pre-animated trailers, a trend which, once again, continued until 2 weeks before release.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago.
And I'm kind of spoiling the outcome of another video that really should have come out before this one but isn't quite finished yet, but it's highly relevant here and I want to get this out now. This reminds me a lot of the dialogue around Sakamoto Days Part 1. Everyone online complained incessantly about the quality of animation and called it a letdown week after week, all season long. But then, a few months later, we heard it straight from the horse's mouth that the highest viewed newly airing anime of the year so far had been none other than Sakamoto Days, with tens of millions of viewers. And this might arguably be on an even larger scale this time, fueled by years of anticipation and viral coverage of the series week after week. This is a loose metric, sure, but One Punch Man Season 3 already has nearly the same number of members on MAL as Sakamoto Days Part 1, and it doesn't even have the benefit of nearly a year-long shelf life, as does Sakamoto Days at this point. Everyone complained about Sakamoto Days when it was airing, except for me, of course, I loved it. But everyone complained about Sakamoto Days when it was airing, even though it was a fairly well animated show. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily true of One Punch Man Season 3, but everyone complained about Sakamoto Days while it was airing, but everyone still watched it. I would argue the only true strike against this season's potential audience size, on official services at least, is that it's not on Crunchyroll or Netflix in the US specifically, where action anime really seem to thrive most naturally, at least as far as I can tell anyway. It's also worth pointing out that the conversation around this show has just become exaggerated to a point which is kind of impossible to exaggerate. You know what I mean? Like, is the season disappointing? Yeah, absolutely. But is it a 4 out of 10? I don't know about that. Was the initial Assault episode poorly animated? Yeah, for sure. It was barely animated at all. It was mostly just a bunch of anime speed lines and pan and zoom effects, and the following Big Garo episode, which was, just as hyped up and anticipated, that episode had some scenes recreated at a higher quality by solo fan animators on YouTube. There are rumors and allegations that episodes are finishing only just before their deadlines for airing, and it's honestly not that difficult to believe at this point, especially in an industry where that's actually not that unusual. But were these literal 1 out of 10 episodes? What are we talking about?
People just say stupid shit all the time.
Like, the conversation around this show, it's not even living in reality anymore. And I think that leaves a lot of people kind of disillusioned about the actual reality of the situation. And that's in an atmosphere where people already, in my opinion at least, greatly overvalue general online sentiment, or arguably just the sentiment of the loudest people on the platforms, as if that were truly a one-to-one representation of how strongly the general audience of a show feels. People have written this season off as if it's already a complete commercial failure, but I think that's being really hasty, actually. Now, I could be completely wrong about all of this. All of my goofy predictive metrics could be completely arbitrary, and this could all be misplaced expectations. Maybe everyone talking about the show is, in fact, just pirating it anyway. I don't know a lot of metrics about anime viewership on Hulu and Disney Plus, after all. I've mostly looked into Crunchyroll and Netflix and platforms like that, but I just think that it would be hilariously ironic for this incredibly highly anticipated, incredibly disappointed show, this mess of a production which probably didn't start until the moment it began airing, as it didn't have any real show footage available until it was 2 weeks out. A show which many people are already branding as a commercial failure. It would be hilariously ironic, incredibly sad as well, but still hilariously ironic nonetheless, if that turned out to be as massively successful as it kind of already actually appears to be, if we just ignore all of the noise online and focus purely on the metrics of engagement that are already available to us.
But the people are retarded.
At the same time, it is really quite sad, as is frankly the usual trend in the online anime community. Everyone has been blaming all of the wrong people for the quality of this season. People blame the director and blame the individual staff members online all the time, when in reality, it's obvious that it had a horrendous production schedule, when in reality, that's the fault of executives at production companies like Bandai Namco, TV Tokyo, and Shueisha, who have the rights to a potential goldmine of an IP and treat it like it doesn't deserve real investment or a real production. It's also the fault of specifically the executive members at JC staff for thinking that it makes sense to take on this many shows in a year.
Look at all that shit. Do you really need all that shit?
But the director, the individual staff members on the ground floor, these people are just trying to do the borderline impossible job that they've been given, running off of pure passion inside of a cold, uncaring industry that offers them no residual pay, no benefits, no access to intellectual rights of the series that they work to make reality, that pays them wages that would be illegal in the country that I live in. As for the claims that the real root of all these problems is overseas piracy, that's just complete rubbish.
Piracy is immoral, it's absolutely true. Nonetheless,
the anime industry is in fact bigger and more successful than it's ever been. There's more money to go around than ever. There are more people who want to invest in the industry than ever. But none of that money ever seems to find its way into the hands of animators and the individual staff who actually work on the shows. Their schedules seldom, if ever, seem to become any more reasonable, and the studios responsible for paying them, who are usually paid a one-time contract fee and nothing beyond that, so they're in a terrible position too. Those studios continue to face an uphill battle, trying to find their own place in said production committees, trying to find a place as publishers and not just freelance developers of projects, trying to find their place in production committees where the real long-term money is made, and where all the rights to the properties being adapted remains. Production companies get a hold of more money, and so they just fund more shows at the same old unreasonable rates and the same old unreasonable deadlines in the same old broken model of production that they've always used. And yet demands for a cutting-edge level of quality animation seem to be higher and more prevalent than ever before, in an industry that already struggles to find workers to fill the number of shows being produced in a normal schedule, let alone one where 60 and 70 anime a season now seems to be the norm.
Look at all that shit.
More investment, more anime being made, higher expectations for the shows coming out, and yet, where are the benefits for the people who actually make these shows reality? I think it's important to keep in mind that shonen action shows are the most pirated shows because they're the most watched shows. I think if individual staff members are blaming the current situation on piracy, sure, part of it is likely because it's disheartening to know that people don't want to pay for the product you worked so hard on, especially when you're simultaneously getting harassed for the job that you have done on the internet. But I think even more so, the reason that this happens is because it's what they're supposed to say. It's what they say if they want to keep their jobs. Part of their job is to take the flak for the higher-ups who benefit from this misunderstanding, who exploit that misunderstanding to obscure their own mismanagement of these projects. And so it's those individuals' jobs to blame anything but the higher-ups, so that they remain in their good graces.
Who killed?
As for why production committee members say so, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's completely self-serving. Even if literally no one pirated anime, it would still be the production committee members and their overseas streaming service counterparts, both groups coincidentally making up all of the anti-piracy efforts, by the way. But even if there was zero anime piracy, they would still be the ones making what money there is to be made, because they designed the industry to be that way. They control the investment process, therefore they control how the production works. They hold all of the intellectual property rights, so they reap essentially any and all of the residual pay, save for a small handful of exceptions where the largest studios around are involved directly in investments with certain hyper-specific productions. And the higher-ups love that most people don't understand any of the subtleties of all this. They're happy to take advantage of it, escaping all of the blame online while laughing all the way to the bank. After creating the absolute worst circumstances for a production and blaming anything and everything but themselves. If you want to blame someone, blame the executives at JC Staff who thought that it was a good idea to take this show on amidst an already packed schedule. But most of all, blame the production committee members. For all the mistakes studio executives might make, you'll notice, as is the case with most shows, you'll notice that JC Staff is nowhere to be found in the list of this show's producers. So blame the production companies. Those are the people who ultimately make the final decisions. Those are the people who organize and decide the airing schedule. Those are the people who deserve all of your ire and your blame. And they're also the same people who are going to be laughing all the way to the bank, if I'm right about this. And in turn, they will learn none of the right lessons from this whole endeavor.
I didn't learn anything. I was right all along.
They'll instead learn the lesson that they invested no reasonable time, very little money, and none of their industry connections to bring together the kind of talent that this IP rightfully deserves to have helping them work on it. And they'll learn that that all worked out just fine. The individual staff took the brunt of the blame as usual, and they still made their share of the money on a cheap, quick turnover product, regardless of people's complaints online. Once again, I could be completely wrong with this prediction. After all, as a product, which I do think we all reserve the right to judge honestly, it does genuinely deserve way more of the criticism it received than Sakamoto Days did, for example. Once again, that's me judging it as a product, not me reviewing the people who worked on the show. I'm sure that they're all trying really hard to make a quality product, given the circumstances that they've been given. Anyway, I apologize if this is another kind of depressing perspective, but I thought that this was kind of a fascinating idea. It suddenly sparked a full script worth of thoughts very quickly, and I figured some of you might also find it interesting. It was one of those that kind of just manifested itself into existence as I typed out the script in a caffeine-fueled rage, and I sure as hell didn't want to wait until someone else said it first to record this. So anyway, if it's any consolation, the quote-unquote Sakamoto Days video, it's not really a Sakamoto's Day video, but it's kind of a Sakamoto Days video. The one that I mentioned earlier, which I am in the middle of editing, it's already recorded, it provides a much more positive perspective on some of these thoughts. So look forward to that, as well as another free run video discussing its production and visuals very soon. Anyway, to end on a quick positive note, if you have been disappointed with One Punch Man Season 3, you should consider checking out the currently airing Tojima Wants to be a Kamen Rider. It has some really well animated fights. Not One Punch Man Season 1 well animated, obviously, that's a pretty high bar, but it is well animated. It has a really nice retro style, and as long as you can get past the fact that it is incredibly cheesy, incredibly corny, the corniest thing I've seen in a while, to be completely honest. It is also one of the funniest shows that I've seen in a long time. But anyway, hope you have a good one, and always remember, cancel all of your streaming subscriptions and donate to Studio Trigger and the Animator Dormitory Project instead. Peace.